Zach Prusak is going to take this next unit. He works for Tall Timbers Research Station in land conservation out of Tallahassee, but hopefully he has a lot to share with us. And so I think the last Zach was leveraging new advances in technology to meet modern fire training challenges. It's a mouthful. So anyway, hand it off to you, Matt.
Thanks, Fred. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. I see your slide
Awesome.
And hear you just fine.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to the Virginia Prescribed Fire Council meeting. And Kelly, oh my God, that was an amazing presentation. I cannot overemphasize the importance of a PIO in this crazy world. Back when I started fire in the Pleistocene, it feels like, let's get this article in the newspaper and we're going to plan for that. And a skilled PIO, so that was great. That's an inspiring presentation. My name is Zachary Prusak. I used to be the Florida Fire Manager for the Nature Conservancy for about 16 years, but now I work for Tall Timbers Research Station, and myself and Matt Snyder, we are both wildland fire training specialists. And I've also got another job or the Northeast Compact actually has a grant supporting my position at Tall Timbers, where I focus on Northeast fire training gaps, try to identify what trainings are being provided, work to increase coordination among fire training, whether it's agencies or different folks who provide training, and just to, again, try to get folks together to help each other out. So Matt does send his regards, but yeah, he cannot be here due to a death in the family. And so it's the past couple of years has been crazy and stressful. And what has come out of it has been, in my opinion, a sort of reassessment of training, of what we do. It's good to see Sam. When I first got to TNC, Sam and Laura Butterfield, now Laura Page, working really hard in creating fire training that at the time expanded the amount of fire that was conducted on the ground, which is critical. So training is critical. How we used to do training, how we now do training in this COVID world. I think that, again, in all of what has happened, all of the really bad times, some good stuff has come out of it, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about fire councils. So I am so glad, again, to be here. I was one of the founding members of the Central Florida Prescribed Fire Council, so that gives you an idea of how old I am. And that way, way, way back when. So this map on the upper left was a map that we used in a 2007 Fire Council meeting in Florida, which showed at that time the councils that were established and the councils that were developing. And since then, there's been this national coalition of prescribed fire councils that has formed. And the overall goal of the coalition is to create one voice to assist fire practitioners, policymakers, regulators, citizens with issues surrounding prescribed fire use. Basically, gathering all of these voices together that support and promote fire, all different levels. So the coalition is a really powerful group of other fire councils. And one of the products is a National Prescribed Fire Use Report. And I'm now on the newly formed board, which is a really good, diverse, and balanced board. And we're beginning to develop our work plan. And the timing's really good for that, as of course, this opportunity with all this money coming down, potential that we could increase what we all do from a fire, being good fire on the ground. But this map, so I mentioned I'm old. I just look at this map. So the one on the lower right is the most recent Fire Council map, and it's pretty amazing. If you were to tell me this is what we would get to way back when, in the mid 2000s, I would have thought there's just no way. But it's just impressive how many states have not just one, but two councils. I know that there is a stakeholder group working to create a West Virginia Prescribed Fire Council, and I think that group will be reaching out to you all for guidance. For me, I'm going to try to gather some folks for a regional Prescribed Fire Council workshop, and I'm also reaching out to all of the fire councils to gather contact info. That is really hard. It's a challenge to all of the councils as chairs step down, new chairs raise their hand, who they are, phone numbers, emails. I know when I was with the Central Florida Fire Council, sometimes, we had bylaws, but I just keep being chair for a while. And so it's a challenge to get all that information. But I'm here to tell you that I've seen the power of the councils, both from a media standpoint, policy standpoint, gathering people together to get more fire done. There's really nothing quite like it. Prescribed burn associations fit nicely where they're applicable as well to work with councils. So again, what you all are doing, it's just an incredible thing. So thank you all for being a part of the council. So fire training, there's a challenge. We need increased fire training and mentoring, especially in the coming decades, both from a control burning and firefighting standpoint. This is something that has been made apparent. There have been 2 recent surveys in the Northeast and the Southeast, supported by the Regional Cohesive Strategy Committees. And a lot of people, I'm sure many people on this council meeting replied to those surveys to sort of get a window into what training needs, what training's out there, what the needs are, from a wide spectrum, from all the way from, high-level federal fire folks to the private landowners, because it's all, the whole, as they say, fire doesn't recognize patches. So we all need to be better informed on what training needs are out there. And there were some commonalities. And I suspect that if the same survey was done in the West, that you have similar things as well. Difficulty finding out about training, both from the NWCG standpoint and the certified prescribed manager standpoint, which is interesting. This is a day and this is the age of overwhelming communication. And those of you who are on my email list, sorry, I try not to send too many. There's tons of websites, tons of places you can go to find out about training, but people still have trouble doing that. And I think my own thought, I suspect it's because we're all overwhelmed personally with emails, with sites to go to that. And there really isn't one perfect site that has all training, and there probably never will be. But at least, and this is where I think councils could play a role as well. And I don't know if you all in Virginia do it, but that's sort of what the Florida council began to shift to, is at least providing a place where people during the meetings, or just simply by another MailChimp list, where trainings are. But this came up in both surveys. Not enough sessions of the desired courses, or just simply bad timing. Courses held when you're doing fire, courses in high demand like 212 and other courses, just simply not enough sessions. And the coordination is challenging across all boundaries. And so not only do you have a challenge of locating where trainings are being held in what time, maybe you are a state agency and you are offering up training for everyone. Sometimes it's hard to get that information out to folks as well. Of course, it's not equally accessible to all, and this comes down sometimes to the rules and regulations of whoever is offering the trainings and whoever is leading the trainings. If you're teaching an NWCG class, do you have the proper qualifications to do that? Are people from the private sector invited? Can NGOs come? So there is a little bit of inequity for that as well. And there is an interest in diversifying the training formats, what we call hybrid training, and updating the fire material. Much of it is old. The fire modeling that Matt was going to really go into, that Kevin Hires will talk more about tomorrow. There are a lot of opportunities to make what we all learned better. And then the lack of virtual components that would help reduce travel and course delivery costs. And so that's where we go to this hybrid. And I say hybrid, and you'll hear a lot of this, the more online webinars that you go to. There's one this week sponsored by the Southern Fire Exchange as well, where you have courses that are delivered basically through some sort of learning management system that you can have students work with each other, which is here terms like asynchronous and synchronous. But basically, it's not just simply watching the video. You're working with other people and instructors in a variety of ways. But the key in that bottom line there, maintain quality, because we've all been there where we've had training that, hey, this really wasn't very good. And so it's a challenge to really learn from universities or other folks who specialize in delivering learning, not just training. So a quick example of stuff that I've done, and I've worked in converting some basic S130, S190, L180, and S131 into this new hybrid format, working with the University of Florida and their extension group called NATA, Natural Areas Training Academy, which actually was a Nature Conservancy project at one time. So we're utilizing their learning management system, which is called Canvas, which is what University of Florida utilizes. Similar to Wildland Fire Learning Portal, those of you who have taken classes there. And with this basic course, we were able to reach 60 students for the 130-190 from 33 agencies, 54 individual actual locations, parks, preserves, sites from Florida up to New Hampshire. And we utilized 6 different places for the S130 field day, keeping the student number low. The Central Florida Fire Council helped sponsor this training, and they worked with University of Central Florida in sponsoring a field day for the S130. So the council is getting involved in this dissemination of really better training. It worked out incredibly well, and the post-course surveys for both 131, where the scenarios were all handled via Zoom with really good instructors to walk students through the risk management process. And the courses itself, they had 3 weeks, 4 weeks to work through the material. So basically set up like a college class where they were working with each other. I was the lead instructor. I was working with a lot of students one-on-one. So again, not in person in the way we usually think of it, but still working with each other. We found that there was a great people really loved talking to folks that were not people that they know, folks from New Hampshire. We've had folks from California, Hawaii attend these courses. And so there's an interesting exchange of information. But of course, there's pros and cons and challenges. Not every agency uses Zoom, which is what we use for the sort of face-to-face format. We also didn't want to overuse Zoom, no long 8-hour days. And you need some sort of learning management system to host courses. I mentioned the Wildland Fire Learning Portal, which is fantastic. Most universities have their own what's called LMSs. Nothing replaces face-to-face mentoring in-field learning. One thing that we have seen is that this increased ability to offer courses, to increase the access to courses, seems to free up more in-field time, which you wouldn't think is possible. But what we learned with our 130, 190, L180 is we actually had more field days available because we've reduced the in-class time to this online hybrid format. However, you got to have some form of internet, some device, a computer. A lot of these LMSs work well on phones, and instructors are often not comfortable with online methods. This is, like all of us know, amazing fire mentors that I would put my life in his or her hands in the field, but not the best person maybe even to stand up and talk or work online. It's a different skill set. And you still need some way to assess the students remotely. So the lead instructor work does increase a bit, whether that's grading, assessing discussions, but there are an amazing amount of benefits. And again, I came from the world of doing all this stuff in person. When COVID hit, we were in the middle of planning 5 in-person courses. They all filled up. This is great. And then when COVID shut all that down, the University of Florida and I worked together, and they were like, you could kind of do this in this way. And what we found was there is a more diverse student group and instructor pool, which addresses DEIJ challenges. Collaborations are springing up that did not exist previously. There's a group of us, we call ourselves a Fire Roundtable, University of Idaho. Folks know Heather Heward, the Ember Alliance. All these different folks are coming together and basically sharing what they do best and coming up with a product that is pretty fantastic. There is increased access. Less overall course costs. There is an increased amount of work up front to construct and create the course content. But as time goes by, that time does go down. And you can quickly modify, adapt, improve the courses to meet the need. Think of these courses now as individual Lego pieces where you can just simply pop one off, put one in. You have someone that's a fantastic instructor in whatever subject matter they are, record him or her, put them in from a different agency. There's also potentials to have all this material done in different countries and different languages. So so there are a lot of benefits to this. Some we probably don't even know yet. And then this is what Matt was going to talk about, and again, Kevin will cover tomorrow too. So there are a lot of next gen fire modeling models, which actually kind of blow me away, because I come from a world where when we got our first Apple computer with the black and white fish screensaver, I thought that was the best thing ever. But these next generation fire modeling tools are being applied to training through augmenting lessons learned report by showing how historical fires actually behaved and their behavior on the landscape. So again, Kevin Hires will focus on that tomorrow. He'll share a link of a prescribed fire video in 3D smoke generated by what's called quickfire, and which can produce 3D plumes of PM from all fires. So basically, these new visualization tools can help teach and train fire managers and fire doers about this connection between ignition pattern, topography, atmospheric conditions, and then smoke plume rise. And so, Fred, if all goes well, what I'm going to do now is I am going to share this is an 11-minute YouTube video. You'll hear Matt narrating this. So let's see how this works. And I will go up here. It says share sound. And now, so Fred, let me know if you can hear this.
Okay, will do.
And just so you know, we're just seeing your PowerPoint still.
Yeah, I don't see you. I hear him, but I don't see him.
You don't see the actual screen?
No, I just see your single slide.
Okay, hang on.
12 firefighters were in.
But we have the sound, so that was the main thing. Just stop sharing and reshare with the video or whatever monitor your video is on.
Extreme fire behavior caused by the collapse of a well-developed smoke column above the fire.
All righty, hang on there.
This extreme fire behavior. The purpose of this simulation is to help
The
develop
dude fire. Yeah,
Yep.
here we go. We're hearing it, seeing it.
Okay, let's go back and go.
On June 26, 1990, 12 firefighters were entrapped in Walkmore Canyon, Arizona. 6 of them would ultimately lose their lives. These fatalities were the result of extreme fire behavior.
Can you up your volume a little bit?
Collapse of a well-developed smoke column above the fire. The digital simulation of events you are about to see is an attempt to explore the physics that created this extreme fire behavior. The purpose of this simulation is to help develop a better understanding of the conditions and fire behavior, which ultimately cost 6 firefighters their lives. FireTech, a coupled fire atmospheric dynamics supercomputer model, was used to simulate a portion of significant events on the Dude Fire. This physics-based assessment is our best representation of the dramatic changes in fire behavior that are known to have occurred. For the purposes of this simulation, FireTech considered an approximately 2-mile by 1.5-mile section of topography in and around Walkmore Canyon where the deployments occurred. Here is Walkmore Canyon. Wind and temperature data was collected from the model at 3 specific locations corresponding to significant crew events. By 1400 hours on the 26th, the Dude Fire had grown to approximately 1,800 acres with a well-developed convection column topped with a pronounced pyrocumulonimbus cloud. Witness accounts from the day describe the winds as being light across the fire prior to the blow-up, driven by this dense column of air collapsing. While column collapses are rare, the effects are similar to more common wind events like thunderstorm outflows. As this cool, dense air sinks, it creates downburst winds that push downwards and out from the column or storm. Like a bucket of water pouring across the ground, these outflow winds race along the surface and alter air currents in their path. Outflow winds from the collapsing column on the Dude Fire exceeded 40 miles an hour. At approximately 1420, with the column collapsing, winds had increased to estimated 40 to 60 miles per hour around the fire perimeter, and fire spread increased rapidly. Simulation data shows these intense winds stoked the surface fire into a rolling crown fire in about 90 seconds. While at this point the fire was still well over a mile from Walkmore Canyon, it was exhibiting rates of spread up to 40 miles an hour. Witness accounts and simulation data shows that winds remained light in Walkmore Canyon throughout this time. A closer examination of wind data generated by the simulation shows inconclusive warning signs that a wind event had begun. Note at point 1, the eventual location of the major entrapment, that wind gusts up to about 15 miles an hour had occurred, but at no point did a consistent reversal in wind direction ever develop. At this time, point 1 is about a minute and a half from a burnover. The combined crews who were spread out around point 3 would have experienced even less wind. Edison Nota, posted as a lookout, observed that what he described as a rolling crown fire developing to the northwest and shouted for the crew to run. Had a lookout not been posted, it's quite possible the emerging danger would not have been observed and that the crews would not have known to evacuate the canyon. With the accelerating fire behavior, wind in the canyon fell to 20 to 30 feet as smoke increased and the Navajo scouts and Perryville crew members ran down canyon towards the control road as quickly as they could. Witnesses describe a terrifying environment with ember wash landing all around them and fire rolling through the smoke over their heads. Sheets of flame driven by these downburst winds created an extreme spike in temperature. The simulation shows rates of spread in the 6 to 10 mile per hour range at this time. As the group reached point 2, the fire crossed the dozer line in the bottom of Walkmore Canyon, cutting 12 members of Perryville off from the larger group, who ultimately exited the canyon at its junction with the control road. We will consider the conditions that both groups experienced. The 12 Perryville firefighters turned around to head back up canyon away from the slopover that cut them off. As they returned to point 3, fire again crossed the dozer line, separating the last crew member, Greg Hoke, from the remainder of the Perryville crew. It should be noted that the simulation does not capture any slopover across Walkmore Canyon prior to the main fire consuming the area. Because of the extreme downburst winds created large horizontal flame links, that the fires which cut off the 12 Perryville crew members and later Greg Hoke took the form of burning gas, not burning vegetation. If this were the case, fire tech would be less likely to capture this behavior. However, this could also be the result of the variability in the model due to extreme nature of this fire. The 11 remaining Perryville crew members continued to run up the canyon, with Supervisor Dave Latour giving the order to deploy their shelters, approximately 250 yards above Greg Hoke's position. Survivors' accounts show that the remaining 11 Perryville members ran for safety until entrapment was imminent, giving them only seconds to deploy. At the final deployment site, the simulation shows an extremely rapid increase in temperature. The urgency of deployment may have been a factor in the fatality rate of this group. Examining the simulation as the fire overcame the deployment site, we can see a well-developed crown fire with extremely high winds. In particular, these high winds are pushing immense amount of heat directly along the surface, creating entrapment conditions that are characteristic of outflow wind speeds. We also see that both the high winds and the main fire front passed very quickly. An entrapment of this kind is created by surface winds that will put flame links in direct contact with fire shelters and potentially put fire shelters in direct contact with entrapped firefighters. As a result, even under a fire shelter, an entrapped firefighter will experience extreme temperatures in short bursts, usually lasting under 20 seconds. Of the 11 firefighters at the deployment site, 5 perished during the entrapment and 1 in the immediate aftermath. Amongst the survivors, injuries ranged from minor to severe burns. Rewinding the simulation, let's now consider the experience of the larger group who have successfully exited Walkmore Canyon at the control road and were not entrapped. If we trace their path from their initial evacuation at point 3, we can see that any crew member who was not cut off by advancing flames had a safe escape route, requiring them to cover approximately 800 yards in about 4.5 minutes. Indrafts from the leading edge of the fire pulled the flanking position of the oncoming flame front inwards and up canyon. It's apparent from the simulation that this effect only overwhelmed the dominating downforce winds briefly, but it was likely sufficient to have allowed the majority of the combined crews to escape down canyon before it too was consumed. This portion of the simulation demonstrates how the typical margins of safety are insufficient for these outflow or column collapse events. While some firefighters were able to escape due to this flanking effect, other firefighters less than 100 yards behind them were entrapped. Approximately 28 minutes after the deployments, conditions at the main deployment site had moderated enough for the survivors to make their way to the control road. The fire would continue to grow through the night, adding 10,000 acres before the next morning. Fire tech shows a relatively benign fire quickly escalating to produce runs of 20 to 25 miles per hour, with some pulses reaching up to 40 miles per hour. As we saw in the simulation, without a lookout posted, it is unlikely that crews in Walkmore Canyon would have been spurred to evacuate in time by the wind changes alone. Lookouts are an essential part of a crew's collective situational awareness, and having one can mean the difference between life and death. Also displayed in the simulation, this particular wind event caused a unique entrapment for firefighters. Firefighters experienced deceptively calm winds until moments before the entrapment. Once firefighters were entrapped, these downburst winds would have caused direct flame contact with fire shelters, resulting in extreme conditions for survivors. While these conditions were indeed harsh, the nature of this wind event causes the flame front to pass quickly, forcing firefighters to endure these conditions for less than 10 minutes. The Dude Fire was a low-intensity surface fire that likely instilled a sense of security in firefighters on the incident. In reality, the low intensity of this fire made it more susceptible to wind events. Always be situationally aware and prepared for what could happen. Wildfire is an extremely dynamic, and modeling extreme conditions, it always leads to uncertainty. It should be noted that there is insufficient information to precisely recreate the events of that day, but there are several lessons learned that can be gleaned from the simulation. His experience during the blow-up of the Dude Fire would provide the impetus for Paul Gleason to develop a foundational piece of wildland fire safety doctrine, the concept of LCES, lookouts, communications, escape routes, and safety zones. It is to his memory that this presentation is dedicated.
All right. So let me go back to this and this. All righty. So Fred, did that come through okay?
Yes, yeah. The
All right,
volume was a
cool.
little low, but I think that made us pay more attention.
Oh, that's okay. I got to start doing that. Just talk quieter. So what's it, so the future. All right. So we are in this world of incredible ability to recreate historical events, model things with supercomputers that, that could not have been done years ago. But and this is maybe the Luddite in myself, I still caution about depending too much upon technology to the point where you can't have interpretation of what you're looking at. So Matt's, his narration, tying it right to LCES is key. And when I was doing the hybrid 131s, we needed really, really good instructors who could work with students and interpret, yes, this is a topo and this is why, you're making these decisions. And so it's, so I think, I don't know, I definitely want to leave people with that idea that we're going to be able to display things, and people love to see, like, that animation was amazing. And Kevin's going to show you stuff tomorrow too. The ability to actually see and visualize things that have been just two-dimensional drawings is going to be through the roof. But we still need folks to interpret that and mentor the young up-and-coming burners. But and those of you who know me, I tend to be, I guess, a cynical optimist, but I'm pretty optimistic about the future of fire learning and training. And there's so many wide-ranging possibilities. I have spoken to a couple of universities and extension folks here in Florida and other states. And Laurel Kays and I have talked about this too, and Jen Fawcett and other people about this master burner course. As a lot of fire councils are trying to come together in a way that would recommend what best management practices are for any control burner, any fire manager, anyone that's leading a fire, that isn't necessarily an NWCG pathway to what that RxB2 is, but something that everyone can agree on what you do need as competencies or just skills and traits to be a really good burner. Would that have some weight if all councils agreed, yes, this is what this is? This master burner course will be taught above and beyond a certified prescribed burn manager program. Here in Florida, we've got a really good certified prescribed burn manager course. It's been updated and modified through the years. But in all the courses I've been teaching, when we put on an RX 410 smoke class at a Nature Conservancy preserve a couple of years ago, we had private landowners, folks from the sugar companies, whole other story there, wanted to take this class. And there is a demand and interest from a lot of people, private landowners, NGOs, state counties, who want to learn more, but not necessarily take, the NWCG courses. So I believe that there is this new realm of taking bits and pieces from these courses, creating new courses that are easily accessible through this hybrid format, through councils, through PBAs, already existing structures that can connect folks, which then allows for mentoring. I think that's a big thing that we don't necessarily do a great job. I didn't even realize it when I started my fire career 33 years ago at the Florida Park Service. I was mentored by Rosie Mulholland, Walt Thompson, really good burners. And I think, not that we necessarily need to formalize what that is, but I think that's still an incredibly important component of this. Yes, you can take a class and you've got your certificate, but you need people to help you and guide you on fires. And so I think connecting, so you have courses that are easily accessible. You have sites that maybe you can go and, for lack of a better term, play with fire, with people that can help you with that. So I think, and then of course, these next gen fire models, which will allow people to better visualize what's going on with past fires, with future fires. Here's my site. Let me, put in some data. What will the fire behavior be based on different ignition patterns? I can see it. And I can't imagine, well, probably one day you'll be able to do that on your phone, on your unit. You can throw up what this fire will look like. It is a time, even though news around the world is stressful, I think it's a time where the opportunities and abilities to do better learning have never been better. More certified prescribed burn manager trainings. I use Florida as another example. We've had a stall in the courses, the certified prescribed burn manager courses that we have been teaching. Councils have been involved in that, but they've been on hold because of COVID. Transferring this into new formats. Perhaps that's something that a lot of other states can do as well. And the partnering with universities is strengthened in the future. I've worked with incredible people that are so good at what learning is, how you test to the objectives and material. And they may know very little, if anything, about fire, but they do know, all right, well, what are your objectives? What do you want to have the students, rather than here's your 50-question test, the classic methods of how we were teaching people. There are other ways to do that. And I've learned a lot. Again, another good thing out of this bad time, I've realized how comfortable I was and how I taught. And so it basically blew my mind open to do things differently and better. And then the future involves this hub of more streamlined fire training and increased capacity by linking us all together. There are people out there who we all know, because one of the benefits of getting older is, people, hey, Sam, hey, we know each other, and you know who you could call to get on trainings and help you. And I believe there's a huge group out there of younger people who need to replace us. And I think this fire community through councils, PBAs, all this stuff can help with that, get new people in teaching. And this is kind of I'll throw this out if anyone has a spare $300,000 to $400,000, but I believe that there is a future that involves a fire training, mentoring, doing app on your mobile device. We all have them. We all have these, smartphones. And I mentioned how I opened this up with difficulty of getting training notification. Well, I've researched it. And again, that's where I get the cost from. This is a combination between, and don't laugh at this, a dating app, a map app, and some sort of job, like Glassdoor or LinkedIn. There's a lot of job apps out there, but why not? Why can't, if some student wants, I got to have, 131 or any course out there, where do I get it? Well, I'll send you a notice, join my MailChimp list. But how about linking, and this would take a lot of work, basically people with what courses they need or want, with where it's available, and a quick link to the people that are offering that. And not only that, but a link to people that would want other folks to help them on fires. And I think that's where private landowners play a huge role in that too. So PBAs could be, and this is already happening in North Florida, where our North Florida PBA is working with students that I've trained through University of Florida. Now they go to these private lands and they're helping them burn, because they may not, they can't quite yet get on maybe federal land or state lands. But so it's all about connections, and which is, one of the cool things about the fire community. So that's my crazy end of this conversation. I don't know, crazy fantasy. So if you got $300,000 to $400,000, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. And that's all I've got. So thanks.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah, and please, if you have questions, please post them. And until then, I have a couple kind of questions and maybe just comments, Zach. I think you're exactly right. And I'll jump on your bandwagon here in Virginia, the Prescribed Fire Council. We in the same position as a lot of the other councils. We through the Department of Forestry, we had the Certified Burn Manager program, which is a traditional bricks and mortar course. And, overnight we had to throw the light switch and turn it into a virtual course. And we've done that, and we've delivered it a couple times. And I think, it's is it the best? No. But I can guarantee you, we've been delivering the Certified Prescribed Burn course in Virginia now a little bit over 20 years. And I can guarantee you that after each course, some of the comments from the students, and it'll happen the next time we deliver it too. Everybody is wanting that opportunity to mentor, the mentoring part. I think the training part of it, don't hit me with a big hammer, but I think that's easy. I think we have technology, we have the resource, we have the tools to collaborate on solving that issue. So I think that's not as big of a challenge as the mentoring part of it. Every agency, every organization is reducing the size of personnel and losing the experience that we used to mentor the folks as we brought them along. And even the private landowners out there, they get the training, but they want to go out and to their benefit, to their acknowledgement, they want to be involved in something before they go do it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Which is good.
Okay.
Type of thing. So that is, I think that's going to be the future and the hard nut to challenge. This world of technology that we have, it's really, really great. And like, you showed and that presentation with the Dude Fire, that's over 30 some years ago, but we're able to take what happened then and using, like you said, the supercomputers and stuff and create these models that will help us move forward. it's sort of a kind of a good link into my presentation next on what, not the super computers and the super brains and things like that, more of the lower key kind of thing. But that's one thing I think that technology is doing for us, and this COVID has pushed us into this. It's sharing of information, sharing of products, and knowing that, we don't all have to keep recreating those same wheels. And we can come together and we can build that training course that is exactly what, like in the Southern region, I'm on this soapbox. There's no reason why we can't have a course that teaches, 75% of prescribed burning. And that's the same whether it's in Florida, whether it's in Virginia, whether it's in Pennsylvania, and then have a customized, localized what it means to burn in both Florida, what it means to burn in Arkansas. So we can have that what you were talking about, that one voice kind of thing,
Yes.
that message that we're all teaching at the same time, and that make all of our lives a little bit easier. So let's see if any other questions came in. I won't get on my rant too much there. But,
no, Fred, just to address what you said, you were right on, where I think this master burner, like master naturalist program, all that stuff, where you, of course, every state has its own specific statutes and laws of what constitutes a certified prescriber manager. Some don't. It's gathering momentum now that there are, speaking of things that are available, a state that wants to institute statutes or laws that recognize the landowner's right to burn, which is the first step. And then you get how you burn. The councils play a huge role in that. And then above and beyond, okay, well, here's like in Florida, okay, you're a certified prescriber manager, your prescription's 2 pages front and back, and it protects you at a high level if you address what's in the law, the rule. But people want more. And I think that's this thing where the extension, I think the extension offices in all these states could play a huge role in that. It's providing other people with customized, all right, hey, you live in Nebraska. I have no desire to go and burn in Virginia or Florida, but I want to burn my family's land here. All right, what tools can I have? What can I do to be better? And there's stuff out there. And so extension does address it. But I think now there's just this way to provide people with that sort of pinpoint learning to make them better at what they do. And mentoring, you hit it, man. I all the technology in the world. Those of you who know Steve Morrison, who retired from the Nature Conservancy a couple of years ago, down in Lake Wales, one of the best natural burners I've ever met. I can't take his head and download it, but people that he worked with still remember him to this day because he mentored them. And I think that's something that has to come with this. So you're right. We can provide stuff. Now courses, we got it. I've been working, Lindsay is amazing. Sean, and here, these people know how to make courses. Great. But now we need to continue to connect people. So my soapbox is councils, PBAs, and just stuff like this. Just reach out and talk to people. But I do think my app will help with that. It'll connect people, I swear. And this sounds, hey, I'm in Virginia. I have my app. I'm just going to swipe left. Oh, look, Sam wants some help. What does he need as qualifications? I match that. I'm going to, I know that sounds goofy.
Yeah. Hey, they keep dangling that carrot out there. There's a ton of money coming. Maybe you'll find it. I don't know if you can see the chat. Can you?
Yes, I can.
Owen, do you want to address Owen's comment?
Yeah. So Owen, you bring up a great question here. Let's see. Scroll, because I saw it pop up. There it is. There is an interest in exactly what you say. So this could take up a whole hour of conversation, but there are lots of things percolating that are from an insurance perspective, that are from a want to be a better burner perspective, but also don't want to be an RXB2 perspective. No desire to be an incident commander type 4, but at the same time, still need to understand how to suppress fire at a level that is NWCG has that gravitas, of these are the standards, without this top down, like what happened in California with their own certified prescriber manager program. CAL FIRE was really big on saying, nope, you private landowners got to be RXB2. So there is an interest. And again, to hype the coalition of fire councils, it's something that the board is talking to other folks about in different high levels, where there could be, it could come from the NWCG where they recognize a different track of, prescribed burner, or there are these best manager practices competencies that a group agrees upon, and it could be a subsidiary of the NWCG with the same weight that says, yes, these will allow you to become this, recognized proficiency in running fire. So yeah, and it's like a lot of things, it's complicated because there is, a structure in place for good reasons for suppression. And yet all these states have different laws and statutes. So combining that with what all of us understand is to be what it takes to be a good burner is the challenge. But there's momentum and there's desire for that. So that's a great question. All I can tell you is that stay tuned. There's people that want what you just said. So that's a great question.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, I don't see any other ones, but like I said, this is thought-provoking for sure. And again, just re-emphasizes that concept of, we all need to work towards common goals, and we can leverage each other's strengths. I will add one thing when we keep talking about this mentoring, and yes, a individual company, whether you do prescribed burning or you're into sugarcane management, whatever it is, you have the responsibility of developing the new people coming up behind you. But also, I think that the mentoring can be something maybe more, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but for the land management agencies, the state agencies, the federal agencies and such, I think we need to find it where it'll be easier, less cumbersome from the legal standpoint, whatever it is, to invite people out to our tracks when we're burning to get that experience. So again, it's lots of different things are working toward, but there's a lot of good people working on that, I think.
Yes, and there are MOUs in place. You can join different. So there's structures in place that will allow people to access. There's waivers. There's all kinds of documents like that will say, yes, come on my land, burn with me. They're from everything from you got to be at FFT2 minimum, which is what the Nature Conservancy has, and then all the way to a private landowner in Florida, which we have really high state standards, but you don't need NOMEX. You don't need any of the NWCG courses at all to actually burn. But there are a lot of people that want them. And Sam needs less age. Sorry, man, I don't have an app for that. You're stuck being old. But Laurel is right. These issues came up a lot with this training. People who want more, but also are barred from NWCG training. And then there is this I don't know. There's the best of both worlds. I have seen folks in the NWCG community really not respect a lot of the experience and learning from the private landowner side, who's, again, I've worked with in Florida, who I would trust my life with. And then likewise, too, a lot of folks in the private land side don't understand that they could learn a bit more. So I think one of the best things about this hybrid training world is that you can craft training that you can then offer anyone to take, that you don't necessarily have to have the prerequisites of a lot of these courses. And these are high level, the RX 301, 341, the fire implementation and planning, smoke. There's other ways to do this that will address what Laurel just said. But at the same time, there is no overall, invasive plants has a best management practice manual, and this is what you are. There isn't anything that says, you, Fred, you are, I don't know, a burn master, this is what you are. There isn't anything like that overall. And I think that's what we may have to get to one day. And yeah, Rebecca just says that's the biggest challenge we face. Yeah, I think we can address it. I think by again offering, and this is where one more thing, I'm not, in all this presentation, I'm not competing with the Wildland Fire Learning Portal and everything that they're doing there. But what Tall Timbers is also going to pursue, hosting their own learning management system. It'll probably be Moodle, like the Wildland Fire Portal, but then we can offer up another option for offering courses that people just, so what if there's a PBA that says, we need some really good smoke courses. Jack Miguel Ostinsky is doing great stuff in his area with smoke courses, but we could then offer this stuff to an audience that just says, hey, this is what we need and we can't get this course. Great, no problem, we can do it. So I think this flexibility is going to help everyone. So, and I'll stop talking.
Well, I think I'll end it with this. Again, thank you so much for your time and experience and expertise for sure. The Coalition of Fire Councils, you need to be familiar with that. You need to be looking at all these different councils, whether you're in Virginia or North Carolina or Florida. All these other councils have valuable information on their sites that can help you. And when I talk about you, I'm talking about you as an individual, but also can help us as a Virginia Prescribed Fire Council to expand our capacity and our strengths. So again, if you haven't gone looking, make sure you go to the Prescribed Fire Council, Coalition of Councils.